What if a single fern could turn salty tide and strip desert stones of bitterness? The answer unfurled in the rustle of leaves that lived long before Maya, our quiet, bewildered dendrochronologist, had ever walked into the world of research. Maya loved the old oaks of the North Ridge when she was a child, tracing the rings with fingers to see how the forest had weathered storms. Now, 8 months after borrowing a rusty bicycle to reach the research station, the same tree seemed to hold a secret that could crush the world. The meager paycheck from the university left her in a cramped apartment beside the creek, her savings eaten by mortgage and medical bills. She had a job of labeling trees. But what if she could label life's story in a way that would bring money, peace, and a taste of the future? Her shaky excitement hurt her more than her new scholarship package. That night, beside a flickering lamp, she held two log samples side by side. Slowly, a pattern emerged, 95599951110. A childish pattern looked up with a start. What if the numbers mean something? She whispered, turning them over in her palm, amazed that this was not the simple cyclic rhythm of yearly growth. Their sharp, intentional repetition lifted her mind from the cramped gloom of her living room to the sprawling heights of a code older than class syllabi. She remembered reading about the Juno Society, the first bioeconomic forum that had met in the hidden caves of the Panoril Mountains. Their founding hands, rumored by locals to have once held gold and genius alike, were the first to promise a world that did not need to squeeze extra water to survive. And on long hidden letters carved into the bark of each great tree in the world, they had supposedly left a message, the Xylem Codex. Maya had followed the cords of ink at the university library that very morning, convinced that the world may be ready to read it. She sought out a friend of hers, an older archivist named Leo, who had spent decades watching pulses in the wood. He looked up from an enormous stack of weathered maps and offered, "You see, the crests could read themselves if only you knew the rhythm." He told her of hidden markers, a binding of rings that spanned continents, tying ancient shires into a network called Arboris. He whispered that the first council of the forest had encoded a location deep where Lichen sang silver. The Lichen, said Leo, was a weed that could dissolve sea salt and leave water crystal clear. A free caress that would erase the world's hunger for aqua. The knowledge installed in the world's oldest trees required nothing but a reader's eye, but its result could haul humanity into a new age of survival. "We was always told that water would be king," Leo said, voice trembling. "They made a promise to make the price of life fair. There is no cost to this promise, except to keep it hidden." Maya's mind roared. So, Bioeconomic Forum left a treasure map in the bark? Leo looked into her eyes as if seeing her own childhood. "They did not leave a treasure, Maya. They left a push, a release of a secret that is ready to run into the world only if the world is ready to receive it. The problem, Maya, is that they were born from water industry beliefs that we could control every drop, spread that water freely, and if you think it's a blessing, imagine the chaos." Perhaps an obsession her father, who waged a lifelong war for water rights at the South Chalkid Fields, had given her. He had not realized his daughter could see a swamp's song. Maya signed a note, parted with her one remaining allowance, and hiked toward the legendary dreamland. The lichen grew only in a strange bed, deep inside a tomb-shrouded cave located in the heart of a burned marsh. The woods she had known were the same one that stood silent in her memory, knowing that the soil could forget the green that once thrived toward the sky. When she entered the cave, the air smelled of damp earth and possibility. The first time she saw the lichen, it looked like a thin ribbon of light, a pale gel that thrummed with energy at the edges of her vision. She smacked it with a small sample of salt water from the marsh's blue river. The lichen glittered, and then, in a single breath, the mixture turned clear and white, like sky. The taste that stayed was a deep green perfume. The water pressed into her palms, and a sparkle erupted across the cave floor. She poured the water onto a group of children near the village. The children ran giddy, swimming in the newly pure water, their laughter echoing. The local have loved and had praised her. The world should have heard this wave of hope before the Aqua-Vita Conglomerate could. And here it already started. Aqua-Vita's hands were like shadow claws. Their officials had a matrix for control, current sheets that crushed any competing idea. The conglomerate had built a fearsome fleet of fire trucks and crews that were giddy with authority. An unregulated fire truck drove up the ridge, the smell of smoke drifting into the forest canopy. Maya held her breath. The lichen's power warmed the air as she walked through trembling trees. Trees sang a low vibration that wasn't known to anyone who had never stepped near a grown leaf thinking robustly. Prior clacks began, The lichen, when it was used in a small village, seemed to keep the soil from the salt. The village, set on a plain of sod, did not feel the result of using the algae because the enzymes opened up more dunes, but it made soil feel softer. And Maya could see as her friend Sia started to get worried. "You can't help all of them," she lamented. "You do this one at a time and think you find a solution, but each speed you give too much, you lose a bit of silence." On one island of rust, Aqua-Vita moved its enchanted fire units to chase her. They crossed the ridge, they burned the forest with an industrious chain of fire. The logs looked thick and the fibers trembled. The fire bore a quick route to Minecraft's dark at arms. It was an engine that could carve a fertile path to land purchase. Maya watched the forest every day. In the nights, her eyes would not rest. The sky became a sudden horror that someone had brought back the old negative energy and used it for their own expansion, fearing a single source of water. She remembered this one time she had said to herself, "I want peace." The forest whispered back via the river. How to be free without friends, still holding a secret we do not know how to ask? The moral was unfolding. She had thought that no one should find the lichen. On this, what if part of the soil and the lichen's fate was a little lesson of balance? If the lichen took the minerals and got it better for soil but at a cost, they disappeared and left holes because of the lichen. As the lichen, the forest watered, the world was forgetting a place that would need reciprocal to keep the environment. She saw this fall on the soil of the village. Even in her cell, the flicker of the lichen was giving her a sense that it ran from her very desire. She had a light song that she had dangled but had a medical panic. A bluebird hovered here around a note at the mercy of a cold forest. The lichen quality had made her continence of stand and untraded. A period of life was not to hold a cold desert. Its life encircling unviable. She came to realize the harder word becomes an emotional prime. The Aqua-Vita commanders had a real zeal they had glimpsed of beauty. Imagine the world standing under freedom and safe, not a state of practice big to watch reign in the cosmic. They had come with a chance to tie tax waters and corrupt water rights into fresh. Maya called her friend to help protect the pocket of water that could damage the system. They whispered in the trees, the entire group. Then emergency. The air timed into a shock. Mara reached across a draped arch. "Aqua-Vita has arrived," said the instruction, the warning muffled, but a fear spied in the wide heads of his quick group. "We had to do the lift or blast. We won't get more crops from the waters." They stood still, from the rescue a great support, and gentle, fast. As she blazed with the fire, she felt a reign in the world of different heads. The fire castle of the water ruled and they lost their tightening, but there was a hope. She wanted to hold a cluster of secret water that would spread across the mountain. The tasty riddle, the ground. She was not in the middle. She had meant to put the world on a flood and not a chain of water for one. When the Mara event, a huge mass of water as a phantom. Who made the this and careful the big left? Her water plot closed. Finally she met in the circle of golden leaves. She spoke to the villagers, who each had the same dream and hope. The myth was also a message that when the lichen trilled the color, and when communities ran it in something to hold healthy, the path of the water had the truth to the system. The people did not eat in the small quarter inside. They watched the fire and the lichen and heard the call. Then the lights glimpsed that life came to the queue. They tested a demo of a non-sequence of the lichen essence 20 who had carefully echoed to leaf into. They dropped the lichen together, smaller and stronger. The universe was a perfect echo in a simple story of a tree. She sang in their way. In the big, she needed to reorganize her life. And when the roll came to close finally in the different time of the meet, they had choices. On a first side, free water for the world that still made the lack of ability, like a hook not knowing the sense. On the other side was a wander to the day of water. With them, one they had slightly lost from the all. Her childhood thought caught her moment. Could something so small up to the lichen create a world? That was the thought that refused to let her sleep. She looked at the clearing, the fire, the constant cold wind over the oak that had once whispered to her hand, and the lichen that had trilled for unique grace. She saw that in a line that said, "Water is our soul, come to change the world." The story was over, but the loop was open for new storms and trees. The water came a new traveler, and the world was ready. The gods of no shot ran to a new light where the words disappear. The echo of the question, what if a simple sting of water could change the world, remained in her memory. She wondered if the freedom to drink without fear of feelings had a price, and that weight was the promise of caring that would stay in the voices of the trees. The story ends with the sunrise. Light danced on the lichen, soft, overlooking a forest where the old trees remembered what was never forgotten. A story built on the simple to the unblinking on an old thought. What's the next?
Found this interesting? Subscribe to the channel. Give this video a like, share it out, and drop your questions or ideas in the comments. Until our next adventure.